But if you want to know what stagflation is, rather than me writing out a long process, this is stagflation. And this is really scary because this is harder to get out of than inflation. And so, as it explains here, stagflation is a situation where three negative things happen at the same time. If you are in the UK at the moment, you should recognize this. Slow or no economic growth, high inflation, high unemployment. The UK is on the cusp of stagflation. And what it means is that businesses are not growing, people are losing jobs, and American jobs figures last week, Friday, were bad. Yet food, energy, and rent and everyday goods keep going up. So the bottom line is that in that scenario, people have less money to spend, and therefore it forces a recession. And some of the worst recessions we've had throughout history have been down to stagflation, because basically people are just running to keep up. And then if they lose their job, and so you throw into the mix of all of this AI that I spoke about a little earlier, we are on the cusp of this if we're not careful. And then on another thing that causes stagflation is this week, oil price spikes, energy shortage, war disrupting commodities, supply chain. So all of the things I've just spoken about, we're here. This is scary stuff. Another thing that helps, this is the other thing that helps. We've been doing this, all the banks have been doing this, central banks, since COVID, printing money out of thin air, which causes inflation. And then when economies become heavily indebted, governments rely on stimulus instead of productivity, growth slows because policy errors by the central bank. The central banks are useless. The Federal Reserve is absolutely useless. Its job is to, A, is inflation, and B, is employment. It was created to stop boom and busts. And within 15 years of its creation, there was the worst financial crash in history, which was 1929. They've been useless all the way along, and they're useless now. So they keep interest rates too low for too long, or react too late to inflation. Explained this to you before. All of them reacted far too late to inflation in 2020, 21, after all the money printing. And it wasn't rocket science that with all the extra money that was being pumped into the economy, that it would lead to inflation. Now, as a result of which, the stock market went on a run, crypto went on a run, because everybody had spare cash, and a lot of people were getting paid to sit at home and sit on their bums. So what happens during a stagflation? Food goes up. The government figures that they give out for inflation, the core ones that ignore food and energy, the two things we need to survive, and heat and shelter, they exclude from the figures for core. So the point is now, I know in Portugal at the moment, the price of food has shot up, and even the government is saying it's going to be up 7 or 8% this year. Energy costs are up in Europe and in the UK significantly. And salaries are not growing to go with it. So people feel poorer because they are poorer. Businesses struggle. They don't take on people. The UK, they're hiring less people. The latest government that come in, socialist government, decided to make it so that 18-year-olds are on the same money as a 30-year-old who's experienced. I used to employ 25 people plus 20 odd subcontractors. And you would occasionally take a 16 or 17-year-old if they showed some potential and some get up and go, which even 30 years ago was few and far between. But part of the incentive would be they were cheap. Well, now, because they're not, then the youth unemployment is going up in the UK, which is then going to lead to a whole generation of younger people who never start work. Central banks start a problem. So all of this. So then, which assets perform best? I have thought for the last 5 years that we were going to have a crash. And so here, these are the things that I have been investing in for the last 5 years. Gold, commodities. So I am in uranium, recently been buying platinum, palladium, and copper. Although copper tends to be a clue as to whether an economy is expanding or contracting, because copper is, when you start building new buildings, copper is in wiring and all the infrastructure. Energy stocks tend to do well during stagflation because at the end of the day, you still need energy, and some value stocks. Bonds, I thought for years bonds are a waste of money. You lend the money to the government And in America, they're paying you 4.25%. But if the true rate of inflation is 7 or 8%, you're lending money to the government and losing money. It's a pointless exercise. I never understood it in the first place. Often struggle then high debt companies, of which there are many in Europe and the US, and growth stocks. And so then it goes on to it. So I'll give you the link for all of this rather than me going through it line by line as I have been doing. But if we're going to go into stagflation, the things that historically do well: oil, copper, agricultural commodities. Julian mentioned earlier fertilizer. The price of fertilizer in the UK shot up 50-odd% a couple of years ago. I'm guessing it's not come back down. Gold and silver. So again, I've explained many times about gold and silver. And if you're new or you've just come back to us, if you go into my other blog, which is the second one down from the home page, and again, I've got 500 windows open, so my computer's running slow. If you go into, come on. So what I said to my investing group yesterday, and I shared this in the forum, so you've got to get in the habit of going into the forum. So I said, Iran's gave the middle finger to Trump. This is beginning to look like a long drawn out war at the moment. Money's flowing into the dollar and not gold as a safe haven. I'm not selling any gold or silver because I still believe long term that's the thing to be in. I'm not selling uranium because the demand for uranium is going through the roof. Kazakhstan is one of the biggest suppliers of uranium worldwide. They did a deal with India 3 weeks ago where 50% of their production has now been taken by India. So that's taken that out of the equation. There's not enough uranium. The demand for electricity is going through the roof. So I didn't sell that, nor did I sell rare earths, because once all this settles down or gets worse, because if China decides to go into Taiwan tomorrow, and they could turn around quite reasonably in the scheme of things and say, well, hang on, America went into Venezuela, of which they've attacked Iran, which is a major supplier of oil to China. And China believes it has a legitimate claim to Taiwan that could go in tomorrow. And if it does, then the rest of the Western world is screwed because of rare earths. And again, I've explained that in my other blog before. I took some more profit off some of my mining stocks yesterday. And I also trimmed coin and my MicroStrategy. They're my biggest stock holdings. I think they're going to shoot up, but I just want some cash in case we get a real crash. Currently 35% in gold and silver. So again, you can have a look at this afterwards. I was talking here about how oil had gapped up and how G7 were trying to calm things down. This is from, what's he called? Michael Gayed, a CFA from America. And he was talking about, again, this is kind of leading up to stagflation. The WTI, so oil at $91 a barrel, the VIX, the fear index up 50% in a week, payrolls minus 9, all of these things, again, are clues that things are going to get a lot worse. And he also talked about the petrol reserve. Also, last year, I bought some puts on SPY. And a put is a bet. If you buy a put, is a bet that you think that the SPY is going to go down. So that's the S&P. And I bought some of these puts as a hedge. And yesterday they were back at around even. So each put at the time for December of this year, when I bought them last year, cost me $4,200 per put. But that basically is another attempt to hedge the portfolio so that if everything crashes, I actually make money on the way down. The gold and silver should go up as well as, and therefore I don't need to sell all my stocks. I can hang on and then buy some more cheaper. Phew, any questions on that lot? Right, here we are. It's finally loaded. If you want to go back over the last few years, 5-6 years, and see what I've been investing in and why, and recordings from some of these live sessions, you can go in here. And if you want to understand why I'm heavily into crypto still, I still think Bitcoin will have its day, you can find that in here. So I've explained about stagflation, and then Ray Dalio is doing the rounds again with another new book, and he's now come around. It's quite funny because he was not into gold really for a long time, but he's talking about the different stages of an economy, how it's doing well, and then falling growth, rising inflation, stagflation, winning assets, gold and commodities. And a lot of the big funds are suddenly starting to talk about gold. And a lot of central banks have been buying gold, and China has been sweeping up as well. So all of that's what's going on, and all of that yesterday. So my crypto portfolio now is up. Woohoo! Yesterday everything was red. That's how crazy it is at the minute. And part of the thing with me, I've kind of, the more I do this and the more I look at, you just zoom out, guys. Just zoom out. If you believe something's got the potential to keep going, then you've got to be able to have the cojones to stick with the belief, but equally to hedge it at the same time. But yesterday, Circle's done a really nice rebound. My last buy on Circle was on the 6th of February, 10th of February at $58, and that is up 100% in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks. And again, so this was the point about selling a bit of MicroStrategy yesterday. The only reason I sold some was because I've got that much of it. And same with Coin. I think Coinbase will keep going. Coinbase gets a significant profit from Circle. Circle's just had really good results. Coinbase is my biggest holding on crypto. Technically, this is not a buy on any of these at the moment, but fundamentally for me, this is a buy. And if crypto goes back on a run, this could go up 100% to where it was in October, 125% in July. MicroStrategy, if Bitcoin goes on a run back up, MicroStrategy owns the most Bitcoin in the world. Bitcoin goes up 40%, MicroStrategy would go up 229%. So I still want to hold it, but this is why I was selling Amazon and things yesterday, because yes, I think Amazon's going to go up, but Amazon might go up 10% or 20%. This could go up 220%. Okay. And then in terms of what we've got in the hold, I don't hold every single one of these. Some of these I hold for clients. So with clients that I'm working with, let's say somebody missed out on AEM, for example, then some are in AEM. I particularly am in AG, one of my favorite silver mining stocks. And I did really well the other week. I shared it on my Telegram group and I got out part of the profit up here at 31.16, right near the top. So clever there. And here, I was a clever boy again. So here, this is an M2 move. This was a breakout on AG the other month, a pullback to 78.6 fib, and a trend line with a 55 EMA in an uptrend in a bull market on a commodity I believe is going to keep going, and that was 36% higher 2 weeks before. That was a no-brainer of a buy for me. And then this move, this time, yesterday, came down 61.8 fib. Trend line behind it. Previous major support and resistance in a bull market, but I think 28%. I only buy a stock if it can make at least 25% to a recent high. Whereas when I look at Amazon, Amazon at the minute is well down. And if Amazon gets back to a high, that will only be 20% growth. And bear in mind, a lot of these stocks are so heavily overvalued because they are based on what they think they're going to get out of AI. But so for me, I got out and I don't regret it. And if they shoot up here, I don't care because I have the potential to make more in other areas. But this was where I was buying Microsoft, and I previously got some Microsoft. This was the last pullback. So this was April last year. We had the big pullback. I sold 80% up here, kept the balance, added. So I've taken a hit yesterday on Microsoft, but I don't care. The potential growth on Microsoft for me at the moment is likely 34%. Any questions? Oh yeah, Grant says, I'm looking like Arnie from the Terminator here. Don't mess with me. Do not mess with me. Do you use stops on stocks or just buy them and hold even if they go down? Says Julian. I don't use stops very often on stocks, Julian. I'm hedging all the time. So if the way that it works, when we were in this pullback here last year, whilst this was down, my gold and silver was up. So for me, the balance between the two is there. So even though everything was red the other day, my mining stocks were well up. I mean, again, I've shown this many times before. My best miner last year. So silver went up 186%. First Majestic went up 212%. And EXK last year, silver peaked at 260% in 2024. And EXK, so last year when silver was at 186, then EK Silver was 20, and then in 2024 it was up 186%. So I say all these big hedge fund guys now and the Ray Dalios of this world are talking about this now. But remember, I was buying this and sharing this with you a long time ago. And I bought, part of the reason I bought last time the real low in January 24, which I shared with you, because we were at the COVID low. I mean, this was where the crash was. Previous major support and resistance, including in 2016. If it was going to stop anywhere, it was going to stop there. And so I bought physical silver and then I bought the miners along the way. Not necessarily. Sometimes you could do this here. For example, I was buying here. You could have just waited for an M2 breakout on these. But I tend to accumulate when everybody else is panicking. So for me, when things drop down here, this is great because the sales are on. This is a bargain for me. And again, this was Gold Royalty Core last year. Gold was up 86%. Gold Royalty Core was up 270%. So there is a potential to make money. There is a potential for you to hedge your current situation. But I know many of you are in your 50s and 60s now, and God forbid we get a crash. But if you have left your money in some kind of ETF or fund that is not balanced, then remember, this was the scary. This was 2008, 2009. The S&P came down 60-odd% and took 5 years to recover. So 62, 63%, it dropped. So if you pension here, $2 million, you're ready to retire and start playing golf next week, now you're filling shelves in Walmart if you couldn't get your job back. And then it took 5 years to get back. And you weren't buying in here because you were well burned. But if we overlay that with gold, gold came down 30%. So once I've got this chart worked out, when Ashley shows me, you will see how the S&P took 5 years to recover and came down 60%. Gold came down 30%, recovered in a year and tripled. So that's what you need to be thinking about. And I know a lot of you kind of come to these things and you listen and you don't do anything. You really need to start thinking about taking some action, because this could be horrendous. There are so many clues around the world that this is going to turn really bad. And this is not just this war now. This war is just another piece of the puzzle. So please, guys, please educate yourself. Start to pay attention. Start to think about what you've got. I talk to people who come to me for private clients, and I have a few now where I'm actually teaching them and helping them to build a portfolio. And I'll say, what have you got? And I can't remember. Well, I don't know. I just gave it to the bank and they do it for me. And like the portfolio I shared with you last week, my mates that is up 86%. It was up 100%, but the twit wouldn't let me close it. But I get people come to me, and this guy, Andy that came to me. So have a check out of this post. He came to me, he'd had his money in an ISA in the UK, a tax-free account, for 10 years, and Barclays had been paying him on average 4%. So he made, well, compounded more than 4% a year when you get to the end of it. I made more money for him with it in 8 months. So all of the things that we teach you are here at your fingertips. But you really need to start taking some action, because if you sit blindly by now and watch everything turn to the messy stuff, and I told you, and I've told lots of you so many times, please, for your own sanity and your own well-being, look into some of this stuff. I'll put links to the Stagflation, the ChatGPT, and some of the other things I put in here, and we'll post the recording for you tomorrow. Will, as I said earlier, if you want to arrange to have a chat with Ashley, then he would be happy to do that. Brendan said, how do we feel about oil stocks, Egypt? The issue for me, Brendan, with this is if there is a ceasefire and it's all off and everything's all right again, and Russian oil starts to flow on top of everything else, I think that the oil stocks could come back down just as quickly. The ones who were quick last week and got in at the beginning of this will have done okay. But in the meantime, jumping in now would not work for me. The argument for having some of it in your portfolio is there. I think I've got one somewhere in here about oil. But I personally, I wouldn't touch oil.